We're going to do a sign now. So there's a couple different ways that you can do signs. The first one is going to be that there's actually words on the building. So perhaps they are like freestanding words that are connected. They might be painted on. You could draw a box that's maybe a sign that's attached to the board or to the building. There's lots of different ways you can do it. You can also have a freestanding billboard. So I'll show you that second. First, I'm going to show you how to make it look like the words are just on the building to be a little bit more simple. So we're going to work on, let's do it on this one. We'll do it on the top. So before you start drawing any letters, you want to give yourself a guide for how tall those letters are going to be. So I'm going to make a line using my vanishing point for the top height of the letters. Then I'll draw another line going to the vanishing point for the bottoms of the letters because you want them to line up going all the way back. So that gives me a top and bottom for all of my letters. They'll be a little bit taller as they come closer to you, a little bit shorter as they're back. This would be more evident in something that's closer to you or a longer building. So if I were to use these lines for the windows instead for a sign, you could do that too. So you always want to use the vanishing point to create your guide for the tops and bottoms of your letters. The next thing you'll need to do is make sure that you're keeping all of your letters going straight up and down vertical. You don't want your letters to turn on their side because then they're not going to look like they're actually moving off into the distance. So it's important to keep them straight. I'm going to write hotel here. So we'll pretend that this is a hotel. If you want to give it like an actual brand name, you are more than welcome to do that. But I'm going to just start off simple. So I'm going to make a vertical line from the beginning, H. We can, if you want, it depends on what works for you. If you want, you can go ahead and create this box, divide it up so it has a space for each letter. That will keep them a little bit more even. So if you want to make, give yourself some guides for that, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So just by looking at it, I'm going to divide that into about 5 spaces. So using that vanishing point again, or the vertical line again, I'm going to draw in some nice light lines to use as a guide for my letters. So now that I've done that, the H in hotel, I can just draw that a little bit thicker. And you can fill this in with a pencil because we're just adding value here. So the outside edges of my H are just straight lines. That middle line of the H is a horizontal line. That means it should be going to our vanishing point. So I'm going to decide how high up on the H I want that, line this up with our vanishing point, and draw that in that way. Then I can add a little bit more thickness to it if I'd like. For curved shapes, you'll just keep it within this box. So I'm going to make my O. The top and bottom of it will touch the top and bottom of my guides, and it will just fill in that space. So now to make a T, this line that we've drawn is going to be our T. So I'm just going to thicken that up a little bit for you so you can see it. And we'll have a vertical line for the middle part of the T. So now our E is going to use a vertical line again. I'm going to scoot it over just a little bit so it's not touching that edge of that T. Thicken that up. Use that vanishing point again. So I'm going to make sure that it's lining up with the top here. Line that up. This one's already drawn. Might as well line up with the edge of your H because that's usually how text works. So I'm going to thicken that. Now our L will again use a vertical line. And the bottom of the L lines up with the bottom of our vanishing point, or our vanishing point line. So you're not going to draw the L as you normally would because it has a little bit of an angle. So as long as you are keeping your words inside of the box that goes to the vanishing point, that's going to keep things using your perspective. That technique and that thought can be applied to almost anything you're drawing here. If something is rounded or if it's a different shape, create a box first using your perspective. Draw it within that shape or within that square or rectangle, whatever, and that will keep it perspective, getting smaller as it goes back. So there are your letters that are directly on top of this building. If you wanted to make it look like this was coming off the building, like this was a sign that was connected, you could have that line around it using your vanishing points. Make some darker lines above and below so it's like an actual sign that's attached to your building. You can draw these in. Then using your opposite vanishing point, you could draw in a little bit of that thickness, like when we did the sidewalk, if you think about it that way. It's got just a tiny little bit that show that it's coming off of the building. and it has its own three-dimensional space. Finish it off with some vertical and another line going to the vanishing point. And now we have a little box that's coming up off of that building and showing out of it to make it more 3D. Now if you wanted to make a freestanding billboard, like let's say over here we've got one that's pointed up that has something on it telling, you know, whether it's like the name of the town or whether it's like a McDonald's sign that you see or whatever, you can make a freestanding billboard pretty easily. So again, you want to start off with a rectangle. So I'm going to put my freestanding billboard up here, and I'm going to start off with the front corner of it. We're going to have it facing this direction so we can see those letters pretty well, since we have all this space to use. And I'm going to use my opposite vanishing point for the tops and bottoms of that shape. Another vertical line to finish that off. Now to make this look like it's a three-dimensional box, like a billboard would be, we can use the vanishing point that is closer to us, go to all of those corners, draw in a little bit of that space, come back here to connect those together, and now we have a box that's floating because that's our billboard. To make this stand up, you probably need to have some kind of support. So you could have 2 poles, you could have 1 pole, you could make it more extravagant where maybe it's like there's a ladder hanging down from it too. It's really whatever you guys want to do. So be creative with it. I'm just going to make, in about the middle of this, I'm going to make a little circle here so it's a rounded looking pole. So that's going to be my base for where it connects. From there, we'll just draw a line going straight down. We're going to bring this back behind our building here. So now I've got my edge. Erase these lines inside of here. It's rounded at the top from where the way that I drew it in. If you wanted to add some shading, like this side has a little shadow to it because it's off to the edge, that might help it look a little bit more rounded. But now I've got a round pole that is holding up that sign. So now within there, again, just like we did with the hotel, you would have a line that's your edge for the top of the letters, and the bottom you would make everything else go straight up and down. Now if you guys wanted to use like a real logo of a brand or something, that's fine. You still need to have a guide for the top and bottom so that it does get smaller as it goes back. If you want to be a little bit, you know, creative that way and adding a real logo, just make sure you're keeping it within that box shape and drawing it within there. Okay?